Signature Bank was looking out for me.
Signature Bank is looking for their next success story. To learn more about turning your business vision into reality, visit signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It's open enrollment season, and MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry that saves most families about $500 a month. Google MediShare and see if it is a fit for you.
7:36 in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center. Here is Jim Telemonti.
We're seeing major delays still of the northbound tri-state from 60 to 176, where all lanes are blocked with crash. Traffic only gets by on the shoulder. The exit to 176 is blocked as well. The Edens is running 22 minutes like Cook Junction, outbound 23. Inbound Kennedy, 48 minutes. O'Hare to downtown, but there's a crash just reported at Keeler. Inbound Eisenhower, it's 49 minutes, 390 to downtown, outbound 35. Stevenson, 49 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Ryan, 30 minutes, 95th to downtown. I-57, 26 minutes, I-80 to the Merge, Bishop 424. No problem to report right now on I-80 or in Northwest Indiana. This Friday, that's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, and your official Chicagoland weather forecast. From the 1-hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center, morning flurries continue. Otherwise, cloudy skies throughout the day, high 36. Currently, 31 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8. And Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Wealth Management Group, hosted by Craig Bolanos. Heard Sunday mornings.
As boring as the 2 days of Q&A were, there were a couple of moments where people show you who they are. Like this one from Elizabeth Warren, the question that she sent up to the desk for Justice Roberts to read in his deadpan style.
The question from Senator Warren is for the House managers. At a time when large majorities of Americans have lost faith in government, does the fact that the Chief Justice is presiding over an impeachment trial in which Republican senators have thus far refused to allow witnesses or evidence contribute to the loss of legitimacy of the Chief Justice, the Supreme Court, and the Constitution?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Adam Schiff gets up there and says, no, of course, we very much respect the job that John Roberts is doing, but thank you for the question nonetheless, because it allows me to say for the 47th time what I've said about President Trump and this sham trial and the Republic hanging in the balance and so on and so forth. It's just so tortured, but it was fun. And then there was this other weird moment where Rand Paul sent up a question and he got
told what he got told at home. Go sit in a corner and shut up.
Oh, he got shot down, yeah.
The presiding officer declines to read the question as submitted.
And he declined to read a question that Rand Paul asked about the alleged whistleblower because the whistleblower's name, that's ostensibly the reason. But Rand Paul tweeted out the question he asked. He asked, are you aware that House Intelligence Committee staffer Sean Misko had a close relationship with Eric Ciaramella while at the National Security Council together? And are you aware and how do you respond to the reports that Ciaramella and Misko may have worked together to plot impeaching the president before there were formal House impeachment proceedings? That was his question. And he made the point in tweeting about it that it wasn't about a quote-unquote whistleblower, as I have no independent information about his identity. The question was about the actions of known partisans within the National Security Council and House staff and how they are reported to have conspired before impeachment proceedings had ever begun. But I don't know. You know, Roberts is a Republican-appointed Supreme Court justice who, like so many Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices, wants to be thought of as not a Republican-appointed Supreme Court justice or nominated and thus confirmed but effectively appointed. For more on the whole impeachment matter, because he's got a novel piece on this. I like this piece, at least for a think exercise, because it's not going to happen. But nonetheless, we like to do thinking here. Francis Menton is the Manhattan Contrarion, and he's written over his blog, manhattancontrarian.com. 2 reasons why continuing a little with impeachment might not be such a bad thing. Francis, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Good morning. And so, make your case. You think that it would be perhaps useful to, it's not going to happen, but perhaps useful to continue on with a witness or two, but none of the names that have been bandied about by Republicans, that's not at the top of your witness list. Who is and why?
Number one on my witness list is Victor Shokin. I haven't seen him mentioned by anybody, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. When the Republicans or their supporters or the president's supporters talk about potential witnesses, they seem to always talk about Joe or Hunter Biden. But of course, Joe and Hunter Biden would be committed hostile witnesses who would never give you an answer that you wanted, very much like Schiff's total non-answer to that question from Rand Paul that you just read. That's what happens when you question a hostile witness. You don't get an answer. Shokin is the opposite. Shokin was fired at the behest of Biden and it totally hates Biden and thinks Biden is corrupt. And if you don't believe it, if you don't believe that that's what Shokin thinks, he just filed, and I'm talking about Tuesday of this week, a criminal complaint charging Joe Biden with a crime in the courts of Ukraine. And that complaint is available online. And of course, Shokin is angry with good reason at Biden because Biden had him fired. And Shokin says in his complaint that he was investigating the Burisma company and that Burisma was being protected specifically because Hunter Biden was on the board. I mean, this guy would be a great witness for the Republicans. And there are plenty of other people in Ukraine also to add to the list if you want to. There's a guy who has a video online named Renat Kuzmin, who was an associate prosecutor over in Ukraine, and there's a video of him making the following statement. Zlochevsky, that's the head of Burisma, hired Hunter Biden with the sole goal of putting pressure on the Ukrainian authorities to force them to stop the judicial investigation of Burisma. So, how about him for a witness? I haven't seen his name mentioned anywhere.
No, I tell you, that's why I thought your piece was very, very provocative. The good news is that if not for the impeachment trial, then maybe we'll get Lindsey Graham a copy of your piece, and he can whistle those two before the Senate Judiciary Committee after the fact.
Yeah, the latest I've seen, and you were just mentioning it on the witness question, is the Democrats do not have the votes to call witnesses, and the whole thing will probably end today. But anyway, if it goes on, this could be fun if they did this. If they called Joe or Hunter Biden, it would just blow up, I think.
Isn't there a certain reality that these Eastern European oligarch-run countries are pretty much mafia fronts and operate this way and have since the fall of the Soviet Union? And the reality is our knowledge is just simply lagging behind the reality of how things have worked for decades. Why isn't there a push for a moratorium on both financial aid and an agreement for us to keep funding this kind of mafia-run Eastern European oligarch central countries in general?
Well, why are you limiting it to Eastern Europe?
I'm not, but I'm trying to be gentle.
I would kind of turn the whole question around and say that the process of politics is inherently corrupt, and trying to make government clean is a gigantic project that we in the United States certainly are not pure on, that we're still working on. We think our government is relatively clean, but there's many, many ways in which it's inherently corrupt. And for God's sake, you people in Illinois, I mean, how many, aren't the majority of your living ex-governors currently in prison?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It feels like that. They should be.
Only because they got caught.
Yeah, for the ones that aren't, they all should be.
And then when as soon as you get into the foreign aid game, the foreign aid doesn't go to the people; it goes to the government. And foreign aid, it's not just Eastern Europe; it's every place that foreign aid goes. I mean, I suppose you could argue that Israel which is I think the single largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid, uses it well. But with that sole exception, I think foreign aid goes to corrupt politicians who use it to keep themselves in power. That's what it's about.
You, speaking of our government, you penned another piece over at ManhattanContrarion.com about our government in the wake of a Supreme Court ruling this week on the president's immigration power. And the interesting thing about that ruling was the rebuke that Neil Gorsuch sent in the direction of lower courts that have been injunction happy when it comes to this administration and its delineated constitutional the delineated executive powers in our Constitution with respect to areas of law like immigration.
Yes, so I expound a little bit on that. I mean, my post specifically was about the recent immigration litigation results and the order from the Southern District of New York, which put a nationwide stay on the public charge rule change that the administration was trying to put through, but then the Supreme Court stayed that injunction, and that's the case that inspired the concurrence from Justice Gorsuch, which is really quite a unique thing.
Right.
Funny to read. But there were 21 litigations brought trying to stop that public charge rule, and 5 of them got injunctions out of one district judge or another scattered around the country. Some of those injunctions only applied in one state. Actually,
Illinois is the one remaining.
Illinois injunction was in that category, but multiple of them applied all around the country. And you wonder how a Republican government can govern at all when anything they do that's controversial at all, plaintiffs can go and find some judge. It only takes one to issue the nationwide injunction. They bring 20 cases, they find one judge, they get their injunction, and then the whole thing stops unless they have 5 votes in the Supreme Court. And remember that the census litigation, which followed a very similar process, that's the adding a citizenship question to the census, and that got to the Supreme Court in June, and Roberts voted with the Democrats. And at that point, the administration gave up.
No, I know, but the importance of Gorsuch's concurring opinion is what I wanted to focus on, because it was a message about constitutional principles, and it was an effort to try and direct the discussion there. Forget who the president is and forget what the issue is. The idea of this a separation of powers and the judiciary operating within its constitutional constraints. That's the larger conversation.
Yes, it is, because if one district judge can issue the injunction, and this is the point that Gorsuch makes. If one district court can issue the injunction, it puts the whole executive branch in an impossible position. I think I have a quote here in my post from Gorsuch, who says, "The stakes are asymmetric." This is Gorsuch. If a single successful challenge is enough to stay the challenged rule across the country, the government's hope of implementing any new policy could face the long odds of a straight sweep, parlaying a 94-0 win in the district courts and a 12-0 victory in the courts of appeals. Any one of them going the other way, and the administration's policy is wiped out. And of course, the plaintiffs can go looking for a favorable